This is a football podcast, man. Meat, football, good. Man, we talk football. We eat burgers.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into Scramble Drill, your fantasy football podcast where not a whole lot of fantasy going on, so it's just a football podcast right now. My name is Ben. Across from me is Landon and Josh. Gentlemen, something happened on Sunday. I didn't know if y'all saw. There was a football game known as the Super Bowl that was played, and I don't even know where to go from here. There's a whole lot to talk about. I'm
Should
stunned.
we start with Kendrick Lamar?
Yes. Kendrick, them jeans, my guy, we got to do something about that. The jeans were not it. My boss's 4-year-old son said he had some girl jeans on.
The funny part is the brand of jeans, because my wife is very,
Why
the
are we
brand
talking
of
about brand of
jeans.
jeans on this podcast, Josh?
It's just a very popular brand of jeans for the ladies.
Not have this start.
So
I did not have this start on my bingo card.
I know you
This
did.
was not. I was not expecting this. Josh brought up Kendrick. I didn't do that.
I just thought I'd throw a curveball in there for you. Just keep
We're
you on your
sitting
toes.
here like on the precipice of talking about, what does this mean for Hurts, GOAT legacies, things like that, and Josh is talking about Kendrick's brand of jeans. Anyway, with that out of the way, boys, I genuinely don't know where we even want to start with this. I guess let's start with the Eagles. There's some news and stuff that happened. We'll get to that down the road. We've got a whole lot to talk about and break down this episode about the Super Bowl. So I guess let's just jump into it. Josh, do you wanna kick us off first? Where do we want to start with the Eagles in all this?
Yeah. Well, in the pregame process, the three things that I said had to happen for the Eagles to win, and I think before we did the episode, I was like, they could get away with two of these three things happening. By the time we hit record, I had pretty much gotten set on all three of these things that need to happen. They had to get consistent pressure with 4 rushers. They had to run for 5.5 a carry.
Did they do that?
Did they manage that one?
Did they manage that? I couldn't tell watching. I mean,
Not sure.
my gosh.
Inconclusive. They had to run for 5.5 a carry as a team, and the final one was win the turnover battle. 2 of those things they did in resounding fashion. It didn't even matter. I don't think they hit 5.5 a carry. I think it's safe to say they didn't hit that one, but it didn't matter.
No.
I was
Jalen
telling
Hurts had
y'all.
5.5 a carry.
Oh, he did. He was great. They bottled up Saquon, but I pointed out, like, that was the thing I zeroed in on. I really thought, I know we've talked about turnovers the entire playoffs. They've been so key. And so that was kind of, it went without saying, turnover battle was going to be important. But the thing that seemed most important to me that the Eagles could do to influence the game was just pass rush. How much pressure consistently were they going to get rushing for? And I was like, they're probably going to get some pressure, but I did not imagine it would be that consistent. Unbelievable job by the Eagles rushing for and getting pressure all night long.
That genuinely has got to be one of the greatest front 4 performances literally of all time. That was something else I was watching on Sunday.
It was since the Giants-Pats Super Bowl in 2006 or 7, whichever one it was, when the Giants 7. Yeah, that's what the Giants did. They rushed
a universal
and
thing.
they dominated.
That is a universal thing. It doesn't matter what quarterback is back there. If you can rush 4 and get to him, you're going to have a hard time winning that game. It doesn't matter who it is.
Yeah. They didn't blitz at all. Didn't blitz one time.
Blitzes. 0.
And so the Chiefs all year, everyone knew, terrible tackle situation. Terrible. Everyone knew it. They moved Joe Tooney out, and it was like, oh, they've kind of solved it. And then you get to this game, it's like, oh, no, they kind of didn't solve it.
No.
That was, I mean,
It
there
didn't
were
matter. It
there
was
were
coming
times
outside,
where
inside. It didn't matter who was lined up where. This game.
there were times it was everybody. It was all four linemen, and it wasn't even like they were still rotating out tackles, and it didn't matter if the backups were getting pressure. Like it was a clinic to watch. It was special to watch. I really don't like the Eagles, and obviously I'm a Mahomes guy, but it was fun to watch how they were just all over Patrick Mahomes. But yeah, I mean they just manhandled him and pushed him around. And
Can we get Vic Fangio?
if you go back and listen, oh yeah,
His
Vic
flowers?
Fangio gets massive credit. But if you go back and listen to what we said before the game, like we all picked the Chiefs, but we kind of all were on the same page that most likely outcome Chiefs close win, like 1-score win. Next most likely outcome is an Eagles multiple score win. And so it was almost like we kind of understood the game. We just all kind of came down on the wrong side.
Well, really,
but we
what
understood
happened was
what could happen.
we have had so many years in a row of the Chiefs pulling these games out to the point where it's like, it doesn't matter the scenario. You can't pick against them. Like, you're just foolish if you pick against them, even though in the pregame scout, we were like, this is a pretty likely outcome, but I cannot pick this outcome because it goes against everything.
We absolutely
I was
knew
thinking
the
about
Eagles
it
are
today.
the better team, for sure.
Yes.
Right. I was thinking about it today. Like, it's kind of like when people say, oh, the world's coming to an end, and they've said it forever. Well, eventually somebody's going to be right.
Yeah.
But until then, I'm just going to say, you know what? I think the sun's going to rise right over there tomorrow. You know, I think that's going to happen. Eventually, somebody's going to be right. Eventually, it's going to change. But that's kind of how I felt. Like, man, it was like an avalanche. And the Chiefs made no adjustments. It didn't look like they were going like max protect. Like, I feel like they should have. And
that was the thing that I think shocked me the most, was that when they got punched, there was no change up. There was nothing else that they could go
counter.
to. Or like,
Right.
I don't know if they tried to counter it and it just wasn't working because the pressure was so intense, or I don't know. Like, I expected Andy Reid and Mahomes to figure something out. And I know they ended up getting some stuff in garbage time, but like, this was
The game was
very
40-6 in the
over.
fourth quarter. Those
Yeah.
last touchdowns don't matter. I'm sorry.
they were
we
garbage time.
We can talk about the Chiefs in a minute, but let's just continue to give props to the Eagles. I mean, what they accomplished this year after the bye,
They were
in
so
games
dominant.
Jalen started and finished, they didn't lose.
Yeah.
Their one loss was to Washington when Jalen left the game early. Like, they were just dominant. I mean, the GM, is it Howie Rose or Howie Roseman?
Howie Roseman.
Howie Roseman.
Roseman.
Clinic, and Washington. Hey,
he
just
doesn't miss.
Just Adam Peters. Don't think I forgot you trading the pick that was Cooper DeJean. Okay,
Yeah.
Don't think I forgot that. I will never forget that. But dude, he's put on a clinic the last several years in the draft. Several years, and it's like
This past offseason is one of the best front office off seasons that I can remember, because it's not just like you hit on your early picks or you have one or two impact guys. You get Zach Bond, who is not even like he
was tossed aside.
rotational.
They were done with him.
Yeah. He's a rotational pass rusher for the Saints. They moved him to linebacker, and he's a first-team All-Pro. You fix your secondary in one offseason, which is like absurd, with Cooper DeJean and Quinyon Mitchell. You develop like their offensive line's been good for years. I mean, when you have Jeff Stoutland as your offensive line coach, they're going to be good. But to get Mekhi Becton in there and get him rocking and rolling, to continue to, as Jason Kelsey gets out of there, you have Cam Jurgens and Landon Dickerson. Their offensive line hadn't skipped a beat, and their defensive line is maybe the most dominant defensive line in the past like 15 years. It's incredible.
in an offseason where they lost 2 of the 10 greatest players in franchise history.
Yes.
They lost them both. Fletcher Cox and Jason Kelsey walked out the door, and they said, you know what? We'll just get another great center, another guard to take his place, and we'll just fill the defensive line with whoever. And again, you didn't mention they got Saquon Barkley.
That's what I was going to say.
Who did not win the MVP, okay? And I get it, quarterback award. But if we're going to bring contracts into the MVP discussion, he was the most valuable player.
Yeah.
For
getting $12
whatever,
million a year.
however much money he got a year. $12 million? Yeah. He was the most valuable player based on contract, and Howie Rose did that. And man, and making the trade for A.J. Brown years ago, like
I was going to say one thing is how well Howie Roseman is aggressive regardless. Like, it doesn't matter who the player is. If they come on the market, he's asking about him. But with how well he drafts, that gives him the opportunity to, like, hey, we need another receiver. He goes and gets an A.J. Brown. We need a running back. He goes and gets a Saquon. With all your other studs are all on rookie contracts because he drafts so dang well, he can fill superstars in those other spots.
But the thing about his drafts are he's not taking like big swing. He's not saying like, oh, everybody's got this guy as a second round grade, I'm taking him in the first. He's just taking the best player that falls.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm just going to take Jalen Carter. I'm just going to take Cooper DeJean in the second round. I'm just going to take Quinyon Mitchell. Like, I'm just going to take the guys who fall. And someone made this point on I heard this week, which was a great point. I hadn't thought about it. They messed up years ago. They took Jalen Reagor over Justin Jefferson.
Yeah.
And I think in the building, they were just like, I'm done overthinking this. I'm not going to try to find the gem. In the first 2-3 rounds, we're just taking the best player. And
that stuck with him
when
for
you
sure.
do that enough times, you get the best roster. And that's what he put together. So he gets his flowers. But there's another guy who's got to get some flowers.
It's Mr. Jalen Hurts.
It's Mr. Jalen Hurts. He has to.
Yeah.
He has to.
No, when you play I think it's pretty safe to say the two best games Jalen Hurts has played as an Eagle are the two Super Bowls. And they didn't win the first one, but I think
He outplayed Mahomes in the last one.
Certainly if you're doing the counting stats.
The first game?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, statistically,
I don't
he
think
was
so,
way
but
better.
I don't think so, but I'll get to that later.
But in this game, like, it's kind of what he's done all season, but more so. He gives you the rushing. He gives you 70 yards rushing. He gives you 225 passing and 2 touchdowns. And it was more than just like the numbers. The numbers were solid, but it wasn't like he blew you away with numbers. I've seen so many people talking about how he set a rushing record. He had 72 yards rushing. Like, great, but it's not like he set the world on fire with numbers. But what he did do was, outside of the one pick, he kept them on schedule, and they were just in attack mode the entire game. The offense stayed on schedule, scored when they needed to score, and they piled it on. And he was just the driving force. He was a point guard. He got the ball where it had to go to. I mean, A.J. Brown makes a few plays. Devonta Smith makes a few plays. Dallas Goedert makes a few plays. Saquon Barkley got stuffed for the most part, and it did not matter. They stayed on schedule the entire night.
Yeah, I put here that he played well for Jalen Hurts. And this is not a knock in any means, but, like, that's a good Jalen Hurts game. He didn't leave his comfort zone at all. And it's not a negative. Like, he didn't have to. He did exactly what he had to do. Played well for what we expect from Jalen Hurts, which is, again, not saying he's not good. This is what he does. This is how he plays every single game, and it doesn't matter.
But also, I mean, he wasn't just a little second grader that we're happy he colored inside the lines. When he threw the touchdown to Devonta Smith,
that was a dime.
when he threw the touchdown to Devonta Smith,
that was a dime.
They were up, 27-0, 28-0, and he's still chunking it downfield, putting it in the end zone. Like, he was fantastic. He was fantastic.
I love that call, by the way. I hate, because almost every team does this. Even when they have a big lead, they get in these situations like, all right, let's just get conservative. Let's run the ball. And the Eagles are sitting here like, no, we are going to kill them right now. Yeah. I love that call.
We're going to take the head off. I turned the game off. When he threw that touchdown, I turned the game off. The Super Bowl. I turned it off. I was like, they're up 34-0. What do you want me to do?
Yeah.
But so he was awesome. So, I mean, where does he rank? Where do we rank him right now amongst quarterbacks?
Do we need to do it?
My answer.
So let's just count them down. Starting at number 1, I'm going to still say Mahomes. Is anybody?
Josh Allen.
Are we saying Josh Allen
there?
number 1?
No, we're not saying Josh Allen. No. Mahomes, Allen, Lamar, and Burrow in some order. Between Lamar and Burrow, I would say. And who's next? Who's next?
How do we want to do this? What are the criteria of the list? Are we doing criteria of this is the quarterback I want to build my team around, or this is the quarterback that has accomplished the most? Because we need to be clear on this, because the shows right now are not, they're not defining
the
their
fifth
terms.
best quarterback? The fifth best quarterback.
Skill.
The fifth best
fifth
quarterback.
best.
Not who I want to start my team with. Who's the fifth? Who do we say is the fifth best quarterback right now? Based on what has happened.
I would prefer Jaden Daniels over Jalen Hurts. I'd probably prefer
You're not
Matthew
going to like
Stafford.
this. You're not going to like this. I would still take Herbert.
Oh my gosh.
Brother, put Justin Herbert on the Eagles and see what happens.
I would not take Justin Herbert today.
I will say this.
You can't throw 3 picks in a playoff game and just like face plant that way and still
The games have to matter.
Yeah, games do
They
have
have to matter. I've got to say he's number 5. He's number 5.
You have to
And-
say he's 5. I'll give you that.
You have to say he's
5 because of what he's done. But in my heart, I know in my heart, if you put there are 8 other, potentially 9 to 10 other quarterbacks, not saying all of them are better than Hurts, but so many other quarterbacks could have done what they could have done that in that game because of how good the Eagles roster is.
I put him at 5. And if you put his resume up against other resumes, that's disrespectful to a couple guys that he's behind. It's disrespectful to him.
Yes.
To a couple guys he's behind.
Yes, if we're looking at accomplishments, and that's why I want to get this defined, because if we're looking at what has he done in the league, yeah, I mean you've been to 2 Super Bowls, you've won a Super Bowl,
Because if
you've
you want
got
to
a
talk about
season now.
accomplishments, then you have to put Lamar above Josh Allen. But everybody knows Josh Allen is better.
Yeah,
I would rather have Hurts in a big game than Lamar. I'd rather have Hurts. He's shown me that enough, and Lamar has shown me that enough.
I
I'd
will
rather
give
have
you
Hurts
that.
in a big game.
Hurts in a big game will stare down the barrel of the gun and not blink.
yeah.
3 of his 5 best games have been the 2 Super Bowls and the NFC Championship this year, the biggest spots. And his other NFC Championship game, Purdy got hurt, so that was kind of a waste
matter.
game. But like he's been the best when they've needed him to be the best.
He has brought his best when the best has been needed, which is certainly worth something. It is just a matter of like how. I still would prefer Jaden Daniels in the NFC. I
I'm
still
more
think he has
impressed.
done more with less.
I'm more impressed than I thought I would be. I thought if he won the game and played well, I'd still be tempered. After watching it and just thinking about his career, I'm more impressed than I thought I would be. I really am. He just won Super Bowl.
I know he did. And this is where I think the discourse on quarterbacks, it goes so far one way or the other. Like everybody today kills Mahomes because he played terrible, which he did. He was bad. And then
can't wait to talk about
Jalen Hurts, now we're having conversation with it. A week ago, we're not having this conversation, but because they win, and yes, somewhat rightly so, but nothing has changed in terms of how he plays football. His resume just has another check mark on it, which is, I think, where it's like.
To be fair, a Super Bowl is a big check mark.
That's
That's a check mark right there.
That's the
And the
biggest
Mahomes check
you
mark.
can have.
And the Mahomes check mark, like
That's certainly part of it, but it's
And
not
let
like.
me say,
and
I love Joe Burrow, one of my favorites, but he has been feeding off of beating Mahomes in the AFC Championship for 3 years now. That's how big a Mahomes check mark is.
yeah.
no,
He is.
it's worth a lot, but I do think there is something to be said, and I don't even know how much of this is part of the equation. Joe Burrow goes into Arrowhead and they go toe to toe. Now Mahomes to that point played basically his worst half of football ever, and the Bengals end up winning. But
This time he played
it
his
wasn't a
worst
game
game
where
of
the
football.
Chiefs. Well, it wasn't a game where the Chiefs just got like steamrolled. It wasn't a game where it's like from the jump, you're playing from a disadvantage because you're getting smoked on the line of scrimmage. It was a game where you went head-to-head. It was a tight game, and Joe Burrow pulled it out. It was like, okay, Joe Burrow went and did it. If you put Mark Bulger's corpse playing quarterback for the Eagles, you're starting out at an advantage because the defense absolutely dominated the Chiefs' offense in a way they haven't been dominated since the Bucs Super Bowl.
And so
there is an element of, well, there's an element of like, yeah, he was great. You can't necessarily fault him for the situation he's in, but you do sort of need to take everything into context and say he was fantastic, but his defense really cleaned up and took care of business on the other end of the spectrum, and the Chiefs just got
23
destroyed.
yards at halftime. Do
Yeah.
you mean to tell me that Patrick Mahomes got held to 23 yards at halftime? I could be winning the game if Patrick Mahomes has 23 yards at halftime.
And I think, and the reason I bring that up is not to discredit the fact that Jalen Hurts now has a Super Bowl. It is to just
That's
take
what you're
everything.
doing.
No, it's to take everything holistically. It's not necessarily just to say it's not worth anything. It's still worth a lot, but it's like, let's look at the entire picture. Because I think
Okay,
there's
how
more
about
to
this?
it than just he played great.
The entire picture. How about this? I will leave. Mahomes has accomplished more than him. We could argue whether Lamar's accomplished more than him, right? It just depends on what you're looking at. He's actually only won 2 MVPs, so I'll give it to Hurts. But I'm going to leave Allen, Lamar, and Burrow ahead of him because the eye test and what I've seen them do trumps his accomplishments. There's no other quarterback who I can definitively say their eye test has trumped his accomplishments. Like Jaden was great this year. I'm going to put Hurts ahead of him. Would I trade Jaden for Hurts? No. But I'm going to rank Hurts ahead of him because Jaden, gosh, however great he's been,
You can't
I
handle
can't put
that
him
on
ahead of
this show.
Jalen based on what he's accomplished.
Yeah.
He's been to 2 Super Bowls. He's won 1. I mean, he's been good in all of them. And it's not like, again, I said it last week, he's not Trent Dilfer. He has an MVP 2 on his resume.
Yeah.
Jalen Hurts does?
Yeah. 2022, didn't he finish
He won
second to
MVP.
Mahomes? No, he has an
finished
MVP
second, but he
2.
didn't
Like he
win
finished
MVP.
second. Yeah. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. MVP
okay.
2 means you
I
finished
was
second.
confused.
Yeah. Maybe that's a baseball term. Sorry. Yeah, he finished second in the MVP. Yeah, I think that might be a baseball term. MVP 2, MVP 3, but
So
whatever.
Was it you were saying before the game that Russell Wilson was a great comparison for him in terms of holistic career? How does that change now that he's actually got one? Or does
No,
it
I
change?
think it was.
same. No, it's
if
the
he
same.
wins, Russell Wilson. Yeah, I think the thing was because you look at it, a super similar Super Bowl to Russell Wilson's win against the Broncos. They just mauled him.
Yeah.
The roster was stacked, and they just mauled somebody. And I guess you could say, like, his Super Bowl loss, for Russ, it came after the Super Bowl win to Brady, but his first Super Bowl loss, like, Russell played really well and lost to the greatest quarterback of all time.
Yeah.
Jalen played really well and lost to the second greatest quarterback of all time in his loss. So I think it's a really good comparison.
Yeah, just be a matter of Jalen Hurts can avoid the rest of the Russell Wilson career.
Avoid playing himself out of the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Not to knock Russ too bad, because Russ, after that, when the Legion of Boom broke up, he did carry Seattle for a while.
He had a
was
3-year
perennial
stretch.
MVP favorite.
He did.
He had a
carried him
3-year
for a little
stretch where he was
Wasn't he
incredible.
like going to fantasy? Wasn't he QB1 for like 3 years in a row?
I
think he
was
had
top
like a
five.
3-year stretch.
I think he was top 5.
QB. He was definitely QB1 once. I thought it was like 3 years in a row he was QB1.
I think it was
Maybe
QB1
I'm
once,
wrong.
but you also had Cam Newton in there, and Cam Newton, for whatever reason, was just quarterback 1 every year, basically.
He was pre.
So hats off to the Eagles, man. What a team they assembled. I mean, but we may actually have more to talk about with the Chiefs.
Yeah, holy smokes.
Yeah,
Holy smokes!
I saw. I saw somebody say this, and I thought it was interesting. Somebody said franchises win championships, and I like last week or 2 weeks ago we were talking about how the Bills outdid the Chiefs front office has outdone the Bills at every single turn,
Every step of the way.
and it's kind of the same way for the Eagles. Like plus to Jalen Hurts, he plays well every time they need him to. They've done extremely well at the front office. Nick Sirianni, give him his flowers. Everybody says he's crazy, but the guy just
I'm not convinced he's not crazy.
Andy Reid. The guy just outcoached Andy Reid in the Super Bowl. That's got to count for something.
He definitely had the troops way more ready than Reid did.
Yes.
He definitely had the troops ready.
The Eagles were ready to play.
And that's what he's there for. He's not there for X's and O's. He's there to get the troops ready, and my gosh, they were ready.
Yeah.
I'm still not sure how I feel about him as a coach because that roster's so good. It's like how I don't know. But you're certainly right. He had the troops ready to go.
And another thing, Howie Roseman, everybody tossed Vic Fangio to the side. He says, I'll go get him. I'll go get Kellen Moore. Howie Roseman.
He's too mean.
Ever since Justin Jefferson, Jalen Reagor over Justin Jefferson, Howie Roseman has not missed once.
No, he's been a monster. Can we just... Miami, something's going on there. Vic Fangio was too mean. Brian Flores was too mean to Tua. Like, we got some soft boys down in Miami. My gosh.
Yeah.
It's Miami. Are you
That's
surprised?
a different podcast, though. That's a different podcast.
Anyway, we will move on to the Chiefs because I feel like we all probably have a lot to say about them. I know Landon has a whole lot to say about them. So,
much to say.
Landon, let's just go to Landon here on this one first, and then Josh and I we'll both piggyback off of you.
So obviously the team the team wasn't ready to play, right? I mean, that was clear from jump. But I'll focus in on Mahomes because I think that's what people care about, right? Nobody wants to hear me talk about Nick Bolton, right? So
yeah. I do want to say give Spags some flowers because I think Spags kept this from being a complete slaughter. Like, it was bad. It was we would have been a complete slaughter without Spags. Spags coached about as well as he could have.
Yeah, the defense. In 20 years, people that didn't see this game will look back and be like, Mahomes was okay. The defense let him down. That's not what happened. The defense was, I don't know if I'd say good, but they were fine. They kept it from being 100-0.
Yeah, I thought they stopped Saquon. They win the game. Well, they did stop Saquon. They did that.
Yeah.
And Mahomes gave you 14
points. The Mahomes angle is, we've talked about the Bucs Super Bowl, how he was not bad in that game. I'll never think he was bad in that game.
If you have eyes, you know what happened.
Yeah.
LaShawn McCoy,
you know what happened.
Bouncing off LaShawn McCoy's helmet.
Yeah, he's throwing sideways passes and hitting LaShawn McCoy in the face. But that Super Bowl, they just got ambushed, right? Like, they just got absolutely trounced. That same thing happened this time around, but he was terrible.
Yeah.
That was the first time. Even in the Tampa Super Bowl, he was running for his life. He did not look shaken to me in the Tampa Super Bowl. This Super Bowl, dude, he was terrified. He was terrified. And his feet were antsy. He was missing throws. Now, he had 2 first downs to Travis on the first drive of the game and the first drive of the third quarter, where could Travis have called it? Yes. Should he have called it? Probably. But it did not look like Mahomes and Kelsey. It did not look like Mahomes. I
saw a lot of people trashing Travis, and I'm like, he threw it at his ankles, and Travis
it was at his shoelaces.
Yes. It was terrible. And then, here's when I was super worried. They were down 10-0. I felt nothing at all. I felt nothing. I was like, okay, they're down 10 every Super Bowl. This is
every time.
We'll see what happens now. He rolls out, and yes, he was getting pressured, but he got away from the pressure. He's out of the pocket. It's not like clean release, but we've seen Mahomes throw on the run 1.5 billion times, right? No problem.
That's his
and he heaves it downfield, and Cooper DeJean moves 2 yards to his right and picks it off and takes it for a touchdown. And it's 17-0. And I thought, oh, that's different. That's different. I'm going to need to see this drive. And they go 3 and out. And I thought, dude, I've never seen this.
Yeah.
I've never seen this. Josh, you talked about it last week. Every time they have to have it, he gets it. Like, it's just in my mind. If it's a moment in the game where they don't have to have it and he messes up, whatever. When they have to have it, that was like, you got to have it. You got to score on this drive. And he didn't do it, and I was like, oh, he's just having
not only
the worst game of his career.
Not only that, they go 3 and out. There's no drive.
3 and out.
There's
yeah.
nothing.
Nothing. And obviously, not being able to make an adjustment, I guess primarily goes to Andy. But, dude, there's a dozen quarterbacks of my life that would have made adjustments and figured something out to move the ball. To not have, what did you say, Ben, 23 yards at the half?
He had 23 yards at half. He had a QB rating of 1 at halftime.
1.
1.
There is no defense for this game for Mahomes.
No.
And so at
Now,
the end, he makes
I'll
the
defend
stats
him
look okay.
A little bit, because there's no quarterbacks that would have been great against that front. Nobody.
No.
But he definitely exacerbated the problems for sure.
He's not the reason they lost. I think that's fair. He's not the reason they lost.
He did not.
And he was still terrible. The second interception, the one to Bond, which I think was his first pass after the first interception, right? Didn't he throw it on back-to-back plays? Back-to-back passes?
I thought they
I
went
want
3
to
and
say
out.
that was the drive after the 3
I think they
and
went
out.
3 and out.
Okay,
And
they went 3 and out. Okay.
Remember on the first drive too, he should have thrown a pick when he threw it into double
No, it
coverage.
was nope.
You don't.
It was his next pass because they went run after the 3 and out, and then he got a sack. So it was his next pass. And that play, it looked like there was a little bit of a miscommunication with him and Hollywood. That's what it looked like to me. But still, it was I mean, what are you doing? He's right there. I know you're getting pressured, but I've seen Mahomes get pressured and make insane throws. He just didn't have it. And there's not a defense to make the game look good for him. Like, I know the stats look okay in the end. He has like a 95 rating. We know what happened.
40 to 6.
He did not play
his
that
QB
well.
rating was 11.
I'm talking about passer rating. I don't know QBR as well as passer rating. His passer rating finished at 95, which is like pretty good. But the thing is that it kind of balances out to me because the Tampa Super Bowl, the stats look way worse than he played. This one, the stats look way better. So it kind of cancels out to me. I will make one point about it that's kind of interesting. We're going to talk about the GOAT debate, but if it does get close one day in the future, people will put up side by sides. Here's Brady in the Super Bowl. Here's Mahomes in the Super Bowl. And it'll look whatever. Brady's still probably going to have better stats. But then if they show the stat, here's Brady in the fourth quarter of Super Bowls, and here's Mahomes in the fourth quarter of Super Bowls, this one's going to make those stats look real good. I bet his QBR passer rating in the fourth quarter was like perfect.
It was incredible.
There's no defense for it. There's no defense for how he played. I mean, he was awful. It was his worst game as a pro.
That's the thing that I think makes it so tough is in the most consequential game he has played to this point, because it's a chance for a three-peat, which nobody's ever done, to play, like, by far, I think, his worst game as a pro. Like, I can't even think of one that's honestly all that close in terms of you got shut down,
The only time I've
couldn't do
ever
anything.
seen them lose like this, and I was trying to think back, I do remember, this was a few years ago now, might have been after his first Super Bowl win. They lost to the Titans like 24-3 in the regular season. Like, that's the last time I've seen the Chiefs get blown out. But that was a regular season, like week 5 or something that happened.
Yeah, I'm trying to, like, the other thing is they just don't get blown out. Like, in regular season games, even when they lose, I mean, it's a one-score game. You've got 2 blowouts, which might be 2. If that Titans game is like the third, it might be the 3 blowouts that he's had as a pro. There might be only 3, and 2 of them are in Super Bowls, which is pretty damning when you're looking at how it all stacks up in terms of, the GOAT debate.
I was going to ask, and it's kind of a 2-part thing, is like when you were watching it, it almost felt like he knew early on in that game they had no shot. Like, it was Patrick Mahomes, like, you watching him, like, I don't think he thinks they can win. He thought that they were outmatched, which they were. And then also, do you think potentially with the three-peat on the line, did the moment get a little bit too big for them? Something that no one in history has ever accomplished, on the line, a lot of pressure. Do you think it got to him just a little bit?
That the magnitude got to him. Magnitude got to him. The magnitude got to Brady.
If you win this,
Brady
the GOAT
had an
debate starts
opportunity.
Immediately.
Brady had an opportunity to do something no one had ever done in a 16-game season, and he lost to Eli Manning. Now, we think of that and we think, oh, that was a better loss than Mahomes this time because he only lost by 3. But at the same time, Brady's team at points in that year were favored by 25 points at times. I mean,
That's
were
insane.
mauling everyone. I mean, it was like a SEC. It was Bama in the SEC years ago.
Like I
and they
remember
lost
earlier
to
this season,
a
the
9-7. They lost to a 9-7 team. They lost to a 9-7 team that year. That's terrible. Like, so when these moments happen, those are like the. Is there any other unprecedented games like that since we've been alive where you win? It's the greatest accomplishment ever. Like Brady had a chance with the undefeated season, and Mahomes had a chance with the three-peat. And both of them had the worst game of the season. And Brady's not the worst game of his career at that point, but Mahomes the worst game of his career. So I think there is something to that.
Is tough for Brady. Like, I mean, they were legit dropping 40 bombs on people in the NFL regularly. Yeah. And then I was listening to, I want to say it was Cowherd today. They were talking about how that season went for Brady. It's like the beginning of the year, especially after they had gotten Randy, they were dominating. And then towards the middle to the end of the season, the games kept getting closer and closer and closer and closer, and then they lose to the Giants.
To a 9-7 Giants team. Yeah.
Yeah.
But, I mean, Mahomes, there's no sugarcoating this game for Mahomes.
I do think you've got an element of the, now this is a few years ago, but the Jordan-LeBron debates you had before the Lakers championship for LeBron. You've got that, I think it was 7-year stretch of him making the finals. And the argument is, yeah, but like nobody makes this many finals. Like there has to be some sort of an accomplishment for making it to the finals this many years in a row, even if you don't win them all. And there needs to be something said. I know Mahomes takes a huge hit in the GOAT debate from this game, but an AFC championship or better every single year he started. In football, it's like way, way, way more difficult to make AFC championships and Super Bowls than it is to make the finals every year in the NBA. It just is. It's a team sport. It's not influenced by one player the way basketball is. And I know, and this is where Brady is so great, because to have 7 Super Bowls is just like, how on earth? And yeah, I mean, he played 22 years, but still, it's like, that's incredible. I do think there needs to be something said for when we look back on this period, and maybe they win it again next year, and maybe we're like, okay, we're back on the clock again. But I think we need to look back on this 7-year stretch and just be like, yeah, they didn't win the three-peat, but my gosh, might be the most dominant stretch of a single team ever. And I don't know how the rest of his career plays out in terms of, does he catch Brady? I don't know. But man, an AFC championship or better every single year is just unbelievable.
I do think it's going to set the GOAT debate back. I think probably 5 years or so, because if he does this and does something no one else has done and has 4 before he's 30, we're looking at a real conversation. But with the 2 blowout losses, one of them being to Brady himself, it doesn't hurt Mahomes' standing in the league or among his other peers right now at all. He's obviously still the guy, but it definitely puts Brady on pause for a while. He's not going to catch him for a hot minute.
So here's what it did, and I'll get into some of the stuff I've been looking at today. So Mahomes, his legacy doesn't take a hit from this. I don't really care about Super Bowl blowouts. I really don't care about it. His legacy doesn't take a hit from this. What takes a hit is what he could have had if he would have won. So their first 7 years, Mahomes is ahead of Brady. He's had a better start to a career. So I'll start with what makes Mahomes still hopeful to be the GOAT. Is their first 7 years, he's ahead of him, right? They have
every stat.
Same number of Super
Every
Bowls.
stat.
Yeah, they have the same number of Super Bowls. He has one more MVP. He made one more Super Bowl because Brady's first 7 years ends the undefeated loss to Eli. That's his 7th season. So including that one, he's got one more MVP. He's got 6,000 more passing yards and about 50 more touchdowns. So like he has like a whole great season's worth of stats ahead of Brady. His rating's about 10 points higher. They have the same record basically. So
I think
he was going to have the
sure-
greatest.
No, I was going to say, I think for sure the GOAT debate's not there yet, but I definitely think he's the best player I've ever seen.
So he was going to have the greatest 7-year start to a season ever. And I say 7 years because that's how long he's started, right? That's the reason. I'm not just pulling that out of nowhere. He was going to have that. But here's what he missed out on. I said last week, this is the greatest 7-year stretch in the history of football for a quarterback. No, it's not. Not with this loss. The greatest 7-year stretch in the history of quarterbacking is Tom Brady from the Seahawks Super Bowl the next 7 years. Because in those next 7 years, this is what Mahomes could have passed with a win. In those next 7 years, he won 4 Super Bowls with 3 MVPs, 3 Super Bowl MVPs. He made 5. He only missed the conference championship game once in those 7 years. And his stats are pretty comparable. He has 2,000 less passing yards and 20 less touchdowns. Pretty comparable. Mahomes had a chance to stamp a three-peat and the greatest 7-year run greater than Tom ever had. Now, who knows if he's going to get that chance again? Brady, from that 14 to the Super Bowl he won in Tampa, that is the greatest 7-year stretch ever. And Mahomes with
That's
a
actually
win,
interesting
with a
'cause
three-peat.
I don't think people talk about that last 7. They only talk about the first 7 years for each. That's interesting.
I haven't heard anybody talk about this today. I've not heard anybody bring this up. This is what Mahomes was chasing. Not Brady's first 7 years, Brady's best 7 years. And he fell short. If he would have won the Super Bowl, they would have had the same amount of Super Bowls. He could have had one more MVP, but he has never missed the conference championship. Remember, Brady had the loss to Tennessee where he threw the pick 6 his last year in New England.
Yep.
That Brady missed the conference championship that game. Mahomes has never missed the conference championship. Never. Brady, his second year, straight up missed the playoffs. Like, and this is where it does get into the Jordan LeBron stuff, Josh, that you were saying. LeBron gets punished in a weird way by Jordan fans for making finals. He gets punished for making them. What's the number one Jordan argument, Josh? What's the number one argument?
It is 6 for 6.
6-0 in finals. That is the number one argument. And that's a great argument. Listen, I love Jordan. That's a great argument. But people get mad at LeBron. They're like, he lost this finals. He lost this finals. And they don't put it on Michael for not getting to any more than 6.
Right.
They never say Michael only got to 6. LeBron got to 10. They just say a finals loss is worse than a divisional loss. Here's what I will say about Brady. Brady's got some bad playoff moments. I looked him up today. He lost to a second-year Joe Flacco in the divisional round, and Brady threw one pick and threw one touchdown and had 4 turnovers, 3 picks and a fumble. And Joe Flacco went, this is true, to beat Tom Brady in the playoff game. He went 4 for 10 for 34 yards.
Oh.
And they beat the Patriots. But nobody remembers that. Everybody's saying, oh, this game for Mahomes is worse than any Brady Super Bowl. Yeah, but it's not worse than any Brady playoff game.
Yeah.
His just happened in the Super Bowl. Brady's happened. He got bounced in the first round multiple times. He missed the playoffs altogether. So Mahomes is off to a good pace. The problem is Brady's prime started when he was 37. And I don't see Mahomes doing that. But that 7-year stretch I just talked about for Brady where he won 4 championships started when he was 37.
That is wild.
And
So Mahomes, what you're saying is he has 8 years before he can even get to that.
So Mahomes, his pace is, yes, it is better than Brady's. The problem with the GOAT debate is Brady just kept going. Brady's had 3 Hall of Fame careers. He had 3 different Hall of Fame careers. And he had more playoff failures that people don't talk about than Mahomes does. But, I mean, my gosh.
I mean, when you play for 22 years, you're going to have that.
Right. The problem is Mahomes is going to have to make his GOAT case in probably 16, 17 years where Brady had 22. And this Super Bowl loss hurts his chances to do that. If he's going to have to speed run it into 16 years, man, you can't waste these opportunities. And he did.
Yeah, I do. I have been thinking this afternoon, like, man, we are stacking up. Like, there was going to be a legit conversation today on this show if they won of like, man, I know he's not the GOAT yet, but shoot, he's getting close. And it is wild because you're working on a 7-year sample for a guy that's not even 30 years old yet, compared to a guy who played for 22 years and retired at 45. So it's a little bit of an apples to oranges thing, and then he goes and loses, and you're thinking, well, can he make it up? And you're like, I mean, yeah, Brady played to his 45, but then it's like, is Mahomes going to play and be as good?
No.
I do not imagine it. I'm thinking like he's probably going to retire like 38, 37, 38.
Yeah, that's the problem. Is if he's going to be the GOAT, he's going to have to do it in 6, 7, 8 less years, or 8 less prime years. Right? Brady's prime never ended. He retired in his prime.
Right.
He's going to have to do it so quickly, and when you have a mountain that steep to climb, you can't waste these opportunities because Brady had the second prime where he won 4 more chips. There's no guarantee Mahomes gets that. Like, it's hard to win Super Bowls.
It is very likely, and I know this seems hard to believe, Ben. It's very likely this 7-year run is the best run of Mahomes' career.
Yeah.
That's
what I'm
hard for me
saying.
to imagine as a Josh Allen fan.
I know.
Someone please stop him.
That people don't think about that, but that's such a real thing that could happen. Like, we can't just assume he's going to do this again. We can't just assume he's going to get to 5 more like Brady did. It's like, that's a heck of an assumption.
Let's be
And
very
it's
clear.
honestly-
I
it's
am
hard to win
absolutely
these
assuming
games.
that's going to happen. I'm
Well, you
assuming
also
he's
gotta
going
think
to
about-
be back in the AFC Championship next year. He's
You gotta
probably
also
going to
think
be
about
Josh
the Andy
Allen.
Reid piece. I mean, I think a huge key part of this is Andy Reid is his coach, and Andy Reid is 71 or 72. Like, how much
He's
longer is he going to go? I don't know.
67.
No, he's 66. Yeah.
Is he really?
He's only 66.
Oh, Andy Reid's got some time left.
Does he though? We've been having a
it's up to
conversation
Andy.
about is he
It's
going
up
to
to Andy.
retire for the last 3 years?
I think he sees the writing on the wall that, like, man, I could be known as the greatest if I hang around a few more years. Now, they got to win, obviously, but I think he'll be here a few more years. He starts a 5-year contract next season. It's the start of a 5-year contract. Now, people retire in the middle of contracts all the time, so that's not guaranteeing 5 more years, but that is something to note. He's going to be forfeiting $20 million a year if he retires, so that's something. That's not nothing.
Gosh.
I tell you what, Andy,
He's
if
got
you
5
don't,
years,
if you don't
$100
want it,
million starting this
I'll
year.
finish that contract out.
I could win 10 games with Mahomes. I promise. I could win 10 games. That's the other piece. The other piece that makes this interesting is Brady had chaos for the Dolphins and the Bills and the Jets his whole career, other than 3 years of Rex Ryan and Mark Sanchez. That's another thing. Brady lost in the divisional round to Mark Sanchez. That's another thing he did. But Mahomes, all of a sudden, has Sean Payton and Jim Harbaugh, and we'll see what Pete Carroll does with Justin Herbert and Bo Nix. Like, I mean, I'm not a Herbert guy anymore, but that's way better than whoever the Dolphins were throwing out there and whoever the
Now,
Jets were throwing out there and the
To
Bills.
be fair, that just started. Like, Harbaugh just got there.
What?
Sean Payton just got there. The Raiders have been
No,
terrible
but that's what I'm
for
saying.
a long
Like,
time.
That's what he's got to deal with going forward.
That's what he's got to deal with. He's going to have to
No,
deal
that's-
with those guys.
no,
But
that's fair.
Brady got to walk to 5-1 every season in the division with one mess up.
Yeah.
Like, Mahomes is not going to have that luxury. Now, I mean, is it going to be even? No, I would assume Mahomes wins most of the divisions, but like, At the same time, it's not going to be easy.
Yeah, I mean,
It's not gonna be
you're not
easy.
trotting out a 5-1. You're looking at like, shoot, this might be 4-2, a 3-3.
You feel great about 4-2.
Yeah.
You feel
You're like, you
feel
feel good
unbelievable
about
about 5-1. You feel great about 4-2.
You feel good about, at least right now, maybe going 2-0 against the Raiders, but the Chargers and Broncos are going to play you close every time.
Yeah.
So if you can
I
split,
still
if you can
think
split
this
those
may
two,
this may have changed at the end of the season. But there was a point in time where Mahomes had more wins at the Raiders Stadium than they did. I think it's changed by now.
I believe that.
But there was a point in time because he had beaten them there and then he had won a Super Bowl there as well. And like he had one more win than they did as a franchise. But I think that's changed by now.
I believe that.
Anyways, the Raiders, I mean, they have Pete Carroll. At the worst, they're going to be better.
Oh, yeah. At the
gonna be
worst,
better.
they're like a 6-7 win team.
So there's no guarantee Mahomes just gets to go. He'll make playoffs, but there's no guarantee he's just going to get to go to the conference championship game every year like he has. Like, there's no guarantee.
Eventually, a Burrow, Lamar, Josh Allen will get him at some point, you'd assume.
Somebody's going to get him. But, yeah, there's just – I know Brady had the second prime where he won 4 more Super Bowls. I don't know if Mahomes – like, there's no guarantee Mahomes gets that. That's why he's got a big hill to climb if he wants to become the GOAT. He's got a big hill still.
Yeah, I mean, Stafford
about
is
number
36, and we're talking about him maybe playing one or two more years.
Yeah. I will say this. I will say if Mahomes, I said Brady's 7-year stretch is the greatest ever by a quarterback. If the Chiefs win the Super Bowl next year, Mahomes reclaims that because then he has 4 Super Bowls in a 7-year stretch. But you'll just take off the first year. But
What about the conversation
let's
for...
not assume there's a fall off coming. There's not.
Right. What about a conversation with Montana, Peyton, whoever you want to have? The conversation for second best all time.
Peyton's out.
I would agree. Peyton's out. The
I
conversation, I
love
think, is a
Peyton.
Montana conversation.
Yeah.
Peyton was just terrible in the playoffs for way too long.
so bad. His whole time, he was never good.
I became a Brady. I became a Brady guy later in his career. I'll probably be the same thing with Mahomes. Like, I understand what I'm watching, and I started liking Brady a lot better. But I liked Peyton Manning when both of them were in their prime. Same thing. I like Josh Allen when he and so I just always pick the worst one. But side note,
I was a Brady guy. You guys remember? I was a Brady guy too.
I know I was a Manning guy for sure. But I became a Brady guy later. Like at the end, looking back, I'm like, yeah, I know. That's
I was
man.
Peyton Manning for Halloween one year, man. My dad's a Tennessee fan, so. But anyway,
Ben, you brought up that First Take did a whole segment today, or maybe it was just a Stephen A. segment, I don't know, where he's talking about how Montana and Mahomes is. Was he saying Montana's ahead of him, or was he saying it was like a neck and neck thing?
What he said was last night didn't tarnish Mahomes necessarily like in the grand scheme, but he was chasing something that would have put him almost neck and neck with Brady with the three-peat up there is like, hey, we need to have a serious conversation. What he did say was Montana has at least entered the conversation again. Because we had kind of written him off as, oh, yeah, Mahomes has blown past him. But Montana, he was talking about with 4 versus 3 from Mahomes and how Montana was incredible in every Super Bowl he played, whereas Mahomes has taken 2 blowout losses. I'm not necessarily saying it's right, but I do think it is at least worthy of a mention, as I think Montana has like 11 touchdowns, no picks in Super Bowls. Mahomes, while I don't blame the Tampa one on him, has had some bad losses in the Super Bowl.
Here's all I will say about that. I have their career stats pulled up in front of me. Joe Montana's best season ever as a pro. Now, granted, different NFL, the league has changed, but still, this is his best season ever as a pro, is 3,000 yards, 31 touchdowns, 13 picks. His average season is something along the lines of 3,600 yards, 26 touchdowns, 10, 11 picks. Patrick Mahomes, we were having conversations during this season. This is the worst he's ever looked. Like, it was a terrible season, but it's a great team. They keep winning games close. This season, Patrick Mahomes is 3,900 yards, 26 touchdowns, 11 picks. It's pretty much his worst season ever as a pro. He's got four seasons over 30 passing touchdowns, and then there was the one season when he only played 14 games and had 26. So,
yeah. Josh, are you
wanna
on Joe
push back
Montana's
a
Pro
little
Football
bit.
Reference? Or you pull up his playoff and see what years he won the championship. I think it was 81, 84, and I think there was one more.
it was,
wanna push
81,
back.
84, 88, and 89.
88 and 89. Okay. Go ahead, Ben.
I want to push back a little bit towards because it's kind of more, we're talking about a statistics game there rather than a greatness, which I want to push back a little bit and talk about Jalen Hurts some. If we want to elevate Jalen Hurts into these conversations, Jalen Hurts does not always put up great stats, but in the games that matter, i.e. the Super Bowl, the NFC Championship, he always shows up and delivers. Well, when Joe Montana was in the Super Bowl, he delivered every single time. So, I don't even know where I come down on it, not necessarily saying it's right or wrong, but Mahomes has some ugly Super Bowl losses, whereas Montana has none of those. So, there is some back and forth to be had there.
So, Joe Montana, and do I want to be the guy to come on here and trash Joe Montana? No, I don't want to be that guy. I don't.
Nobody wants to trash
I don't know how we got here, but Joe
Stephen A.
Montana
Smith did
lost.
this.
I
We
believe.
didn't do this.
I believe it was 49-3 in the divisional round back before there was a wild card round. I think he lost 50 to like. You can look up the box scores. It was like 50 to single digits one time in the divisional round. Like Joe Montana had horrendous moments. And again, it goes back to, yes, Mahomes was in the Super Bowl. It is better to melt down in the Super Bowl than to lose before the Super Bowl. It's just better. It's better to like have a bad Super Bowl than not make the Super Bowl. And Montana, and again, like obviously he has 4, Mahomes has 3. If someone wants to say Mahomes is never going to win another one, okay, like maybe Montana will have more than him. But Montana's had some really bad playoff moments. Now, he was great in Super Bowls. He was great. But also, one of the Super Bowls, I believe, was when the league had competition. Was it the AFL? Where, like, there were, like, first-round talents going to the AFL rather than the NFL. It was kind of like the 70s in basketball, Josh, with the ABA.
Yeah.
And so the talent wasn't quite as much for one of those Super Bowls. So there's some stuff about Montana that puts him behind Mahomes.
You've got a 3-year stretch here with Montana in the playoffs where they get bounced in the first game they play. The first game he wasn't
What were the
terrible.
scores?
It doesn't give me scores. I can see his stat line in those games. It's not showing me
Okay.
scores. But the last 2 of those games, he goes 8 of 15 for 98 yards and 2 picks. And then the last one, it's 12 of 26 for 109 yards and a pick.
Yeah.
And they're getting bounced in the first round.
It's also really
I'll take
hard.
Mahomes.
It's really hard to compare then versus now. Like the game is so different too.
It is different.
Stats wise, yes, but losing 40 something to 3 is not that hard to compare. That translates. That translates. And Mahomes, he's got to get credit for making the championship game every year. I mean, he's got to get, like Josh was saying, you got to get credit for that. Making 5 Super Bowls in 7 years, you got to get credit for that. But I would say if Mahomes retired today, he's the second greatest player. But I guess if someone wanted to say Montana, and I'm sure there's some old heads out here that'll tell you that. There's probably some old heads that'll tell you Montana's better than Brady. But
I'm not saying it's right or wrong either way, but I do think for the time being, I sort of agree with Stephen A. Not that Montana's the second best, but I do think it is worth of a conversation, and it's not like something that you can brush off either. Like for now, again, it's only been 7 years. Mahomes probably needs another great season to really push like Montana completely out of the way. Like you can't just ignore what Montana did in the Super Bowls for now.
What is crazy about Tom Brady is, and I know he had 3 Hall of Fame careers, he had 2 Joe Montana careers.
yeah, no, he had 3 Hall of Fame careers. If you split his career into thirds, all 3 players go to the Hall of Fame, which is insane.
Joe Montana has 40,000 yards in his career. He's got 4 Super Bowls. Tom Brady has double that.
Yeah.
Mahomes can't
Can I
be
just
far
read to
behind.
you?
How many yards
No,
does Mahomes
because-
have? It's got to be.
Mahomes is at 32,000, and he's
I was
played
about to say-
70 less games than Mahomes or than Montana.
Just because I people have been saying now Mahomes has had a bad Super Bowl, a really bad Super Bowl, and they're talking about, is he really that good in the playoffs? Can I just
Come
read
on,
some
man.
stats?
46 touchdowns, 10 picks.
Dude, I can't remember
Listen to
who I
this.
was listening to. I can't remember who it was, but they were like, who do you take as the most clutch quarterback in the NFL? They're like, honestly, it might have to be Jalen Hurts right now. I'm like, guys, we need to stop. We need to
Let's-
stop
hear me out.
the conversation.
So Brady won 67% of his playoff games. Anybody want to guess what percentage Mahomes won?
80,
I
What
mean, I got it
percentage
in
has
front of
Mahomes
me
won
right
in
now.
playoffs?
87.
What do you say, Josh? You looking at
I
it.
just saw it.
81% of his games. He's 17 and
Okay.
4.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
He's 17 and 4. He's got 46 touchdowns to 10 picks. 46 touchdowns to 10 picks. His passer rating is 105. Career postseason passer rating is 105. That'll win you an MVP, by the way. And now his Super Bowl stats are much worse than that. But as far as a playoff performer, it's slow. And we said last week, or we said after the Bills game, we can't have the conversation next year at any point that Mahomes isn't the best quarterback in the league. I guarantee you before the start of next season, those takes will be out there.
Yep.
Are we sure he's the best? Did we see him in the Super Bowl? I promise you, those takes may already be out there, actually.
They are.
Is he really? What I did see this take today. I don't think I didn't see this take today. Josh Allen's postseason was more impressive than Patrick Mahomes. I saw that one today.
Who dropped that one?
No,
Greg Jennings. Greg Jennings, who great player, scored 2 touchdowns in the Super Bowl, and he was like, "Look at how Mahomes just played in the Super Bowl." And it was like, why was Josh Allen not in the Super Bowl?
Oh, because Mahomes beat him.
Oh, because Mahomes beat him. And Mahomes played great in that game. Like, Allen played great too, but Mahomes, so I did see that one. But I promise you, the Lamar's better take will be out there.
Yes.
The Josh Allen's better take will be out there. From the really frisky ones, we may see a sprinkle of Joe Burrow. We may see a sprinkle.
Skip Bayless
And-
up in here.
And
Dude, I can
bet
only
you-
imagine
yeah.
Skip has probably dropped Mahomes in his rankings after this. Skip's probably
I
got him
saw
hovering
he-
around 10.
I saw he released
Yeah.
a podcast today, so I'm sure that's in there somewhere.
Oh, I gotta listen to that.
I need to listen to
Mahomes
that.
is right there for him. Mahomes is right in between Eli Manning and Donovan McNabb in all-time
Yes.
rankings right now. He's
So
right
heading
there.
into the season, it's going to
No,
be like
he's
Mahomes.
27th.
Mahomes, Brock Purdy, and Matthew Stafford. They're all bundled together.
Yeah.
Yeah. The only person like I said, I have Jalen Hurts as at 5 right now. The only person you could argue that has an argument to be number 1 is if somebody just wants to go out there and say he won the Super Bowl, I'm putting him at 1. And I'm sure that take is out there. I promise you, somebody's out there saying Jalen Hurts is the best quarterback in the league. And then
Somebody's
Allen,
wrong.
like they'll all be ahead of him at some point.
Somebody's wrong.
It drives me crazy. It is funny, but it does drive me crazy.
You
But
wonder-
The fun thing is, Josh, and this also drives me crazy, but I also love it. The NFL, I think, is going to have the Jordan LeBron conversation. I think at some point, like, if I had to bet on it right now, I would say Mahomes finishes with like 5 or 6, and it's split. And some people are saying it's Brady, some people are saying it's Mahomes. That would be my guess, and then we just get to have this conversation for both sports, which is
incredible.
annoying but great. It's annoying, but it's great.
The problem is, like what you said before we hit record, Tom Brady is both LeBron and Jordan.
Yes, that's what we're running into. Brady is Jordan and LeBron.
He's
And
got the
so
counting
it makes
stats,
it difficult.
and he's got 7 Super Bowls.
He's got the counting stats, and he's got the whole. We're already seeing. Oh, Mahomes melted down in the Super Bowl, and
Yeah.
not talking about somebody else not making the conference championship.
The thing that I
So-
did see for Brady today, and it's a very valid point, in every Super Bowl that Tom Brady played in, when he left the field for the last time in that game, his team had the lead. That sounds
crazy.
real nice. That's pretty good.
And again,
You know
I know
what's so
Lathan,
great
you
about
said you don't
Mahomes?
count the blowout, but I think Brady's combined point totals, losses, and Super Bowls was 15 points.
Yeah, and again, it's different because he had the greatest team ever and lost to a 9-7. So it's not like he didn't have a disappointing Super Bowl. Like,
Right,
we
yeah.
can't pretend that's not disappointing. Like,
No,
that's
it's
disappointing.
absolutely disappointing.
But the great thing about Mahomes is last week I heard he's been down 10 in every Super Bowl and he's come back to win 3 of them, and it was a compliment. This week I'm hearing, well, I mean, he's been down 10 every Super Bowl. And it's like a diss to him.
Right.
Like, it flips
Well,
that.
that's
You
because
lose
no
and it
one's
flips
worried
that
down
fast.
10. Like, he's down 10. I'm not worried. I've seen this
Yeah,
movie
but it's like,
many times.
How good even is he in the Super Bowl? He's been down 10 every time. Like, this guy's not even that good. But last week it was a compliment.
Yeah.
That's what's great. That's what's great about sports media. It's like you can just say whatever. They really will just let you say whatever.
I wonder often if these dudes
Why are we not
believe the
getting
stuff
paid?
that they're saying.
Probably all given
Yeah,
talking points
I-
is like, you have to be the one who disagrees. You have to. It doesn't matter
You're
what
the
the competition
insane
is. You
one.
have to disagree.
Yeah. There are times I think, man, they can't believe that. They
Well,
can't
it doesn't make for
believe
good
what he
television
just
when
said.
everybody's like, oh, yeah, you're right.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that a lot. I used to think that about Skip Bayless, but everyone who talks about him says whatever he says, he believes. He's not making anything up. And it's just like, I love that there's a person out there with that
And
brain.
Still
love
says
that.
the same things even after he's off the air. So Skip, I'll believe, yeah, he probably.
I've sent Josh something. I don't even know if you remember, but I sent Josh a picture one time. It was Skip Bayless. LeBron had just had, it was like a 42, 17, and 11 playoff game. And it, on the prompter, it says, what grade do you give LeBron? And Skip gave him a C minus.
He's like, he missed 2 free throws in the fourth quarter. He sucks.
It was like the most insane game of all time. C minus.
This is, I mean, it's not related to anything. I just loved how the thing that he always picked on him about was that he was like a 74% free throw shooter. He's like, how can you be a GOAT and you can't make your free throws? Amazing. Like cinema.
Yeah, he also owned the Eastern Conference for a decade and scored more points than anyone ever.
Yeah.
You forget to mention that.
Yeah.
And he's not a scorer. But anyways. We don't have to get too deep into LeBron.
Right. It's this Luka trade. It's just bringing up all these feelings.
That's true. That's very true. That's very true.
We're not talking about Luka. Nick Wright was trying to talk about Luka a whole lot.
I bet he
kept
was.
bringing Luka
No,
up.
sir.
He kept,
Sit with this.
yeah.
You have to.
it-
You have to own this.
We said this before, but I think first things first was epic. Epic.
That was
yesterday.
incredible.
This week, yeah,
That was awesome.
yeah, that was fantastic. That was fantastic. But yes, sir.
We didn't mention this. Where do we land on how things went for Andy Reid? Do we think he actually got out coached in this Super? I think he did, but
Yes.
I don't know where y'all land.
I mean, he didn't have a chance to get out coached. The team wasn't ready. He got bulldozed. But he at the same time he coached bad. Like Sirianni coached really well. He did a great job. Fangio did a great job, and he did bad. So I guess you can say he got out coached. But I wouldn't even. That's disrespectful to people who have been out coached. Is to say that.
They rolled the ball out there and they got pushed around for 3 hours. So there was not
I
a
guess
whole lot
it
of
was-
X's and O's to it.
We don't know a lot of the behind the scenes stuff, but it was hard for me to watch the Chiefs seemingly not make any adjustments. Again, there's so many things that go behind the
that's
scenes we
it.
don't know. But that was the hard part for me, is like, why do something different? No, you're just sending Mahomes out to the dogs every time and he's getting swallowed.
And I'm sure
that's
the
the
thing
thing.
is, I'm sure
That-
they made adjustments, but it's just none of them worked.
That's the thing. He didn't have a second pitch that was even effective.
Yeah.
I mean, his only pitch that was effective is get them to put their second stringers in. That was what worked. Let's get the second string DBs in and then we can score.
Yeah.
And so No, I mean, if you would have told me, I mean, Andy Reid and Mahomes combined for 23 yards in the first half of the Super Bowl is wild. That's an all-timer for the Eagles. Like, you can say what you want about Mahomes playing bad, and he did, but that is an all-timer for the Eagles. All-timer.
Even at 24-0 at the start of the second half, I'm like, I thought, like, Andy's going to figure out something. I don't know if they win this, but he's going to figure out something. And I've seen Tom Brady come back from 28-3. And he threw a pick six in that game. So I'm like, they can figure out something and make this interesting. And then the 3-and-out to start the second half, I'm like, oh no, they don't have it. They don't have anything interesting. This is it.
So I think most people's brain went to 28-3 for Tom.
Yep.
My brain went to, they spotted the Texans 24 once upon a time. This was not the Texans.
Boat raced them.
This was not the same thing.
They spotted the Texans 24, and they were up by 10 at halftime.
Yeah.
Oh,
We bring that
that's
up
insane.
every podcast, but that just doesn't get talked about enough. We're the only people that talk about it, so we have to keep that alive.
That was one of the most
wild.
electric playoff games I've ever seen in my life. And it was, what is that, 2018 that game happened?
that was a while ago.
That was
That was
19,
that was the first Super
I
Bowl, wasn't
believe.
it? The first one he won.
I think that was when they won the Super Bowl. Yeah, I think that was when they won it in 19. Yeah, that was the equivalent of the Eagles' defensive performance, like in the Super Bowl. That offensive performance was the
It was
equivalent.
unbelievable.
But anyways, the Eagles, man, hats off. I can't stand the Eagles, so it drives me crazy. But
They are
hats off.
Eagles fans are going to be miserable to be around for the next 8 months. Not that they
mean,
aren't
they-
already are, but
I was about to say, they
it's
already
gonna
are.
be worse. Turn it up to 11,
Yeah.
man. It's
Yeah, the Eagles. Yeah,
no matter what happened, win or lose, the crime rate was going up in Philly. So
it was going up,
yeah,
and it's already high.
it's up there, dude.
I love Philly. Have you ever been? I actually love Philly.
I've never been to Philly.
Yeah, I love.
I've driven through
Independence
it,
Halls.
but I hadn't been there.
Unbelievable. Yeah,
Nah, but I've been to
love
Hawaii.
Philly. But
That is a reference only Josh and Landon will understand, but trust me when I say that's
I think
hilarious.
I
that
don't even know
just
if
said
Josh
that.
understands
That's
it.
hilarious
That
what
one
I
took
just
me a
said.
second. That took me a second.
If you're listening and at home in your car, just give a humor point to Ben on that one. That was
Yeah.
that was well done. That was well done.
Brilliant. Y'all won't understand it. It's too long to explain, but that's really funny.
Subtle. I liked that.
Is there anything else we need to get into? I did not realize it's even been an hour and 15 minutes. We've been moving, we've been cruising. It doesn't feel like it's been an hour and 15 to me. Maybe it has if you've been listening, but it's my podcast, not yours. So
I'm actually a little happy it went down this way because I wish it would have been someone other than the Eagles, but there was a sliver of Brady disrespect creeping in, and now people are like, "Oh, we should really think more about what he accomplished." Like what this dude did in his career is not even just the longevity piece of it, just the accomplishment piece of it is just wild.
I
I
honestly
am-
didn't
I am
think
glad
about
to
the
see that.
implications because I knew what was going into the game if Mahomes won. The GOAT debate like legitimately started and there were arguments for and against him. I really didn't think of how, and it's not to knock Mahomes, but how hard the door slams for the time being if he lost. Like I did not think about that. That didn't cross my mind. But it does. It shuts
Me
hard
either.
for a good little while.
Yeah, me either. And again, we say that it shuts hard for a little while. If he wins the Super Bowl next year, it's all the way back. Like but it's closed until he wins another Super Bowl. Like if he gets to a Super Bowl and loses next year, the door doesn't open an inch. It is closed until he gets to 4, and it can't be taken seriously until he gets to 5. That's where we're at. That's he's got to climb a huge mountain. What Tom accomplished is, I mean, it's remarkable. It is remarkable what that man accomplished.
Yeah. Well, is there anything else you guys want to add?
That's it, man. We have
What
looked
a
at this
season
one from all angles.
What a season.
Was a great season.
It's been a great season hanging out with you guys. Landon, I'm happy to have had you on the podcast for your first full season with us. This was great.
Added another element. It's been fantastic.
Yep. I'll add a little
think,
preview, I guess. We will be. It's been requested by several people. We will be doing our fantasy awards and just football awards, which we've done every year, next week. And then the league New Year sets March 12th. So we're going to be busy working behind the scenes, looking at rookies, writing up some profiles, getting ready for draft season and full-on dynasty season. And yeah, really, really excited to get into that.
Yeah, I think we're kind of switching back to fantasy again, dynasty again now. Now
that's
the
where we need
playoffs
to
are
be.
over.
Where we need to be.
I mean, if we don't, we're going to drive ourselves crazy the next 5 months with no football. So
Yeah, there's there's no football, so we're going to be examining closely the yards per route run stat for everyone.
Oh,
Looking at
yards per route run. You're going to hear Josh
Forced
say that
missed
about
tackles.
17,000 times in the next 2 or 3 months.
It's going to get
running
incredibly
back
analytical.
targets per game.
Oh my gosh.
Targets per game, yards per route run,
First downs per route
average
run.
depth of target.
Oh boy.
I saw a
Anyways.
tweet that made me laugh. Was like, it was a dude. He's like holding a glass of bourbon, like, the fine coat and everything. Is like how it feels to bring up a dot at your Super Bowl party. Yeah, that's right.
All you peasants are talking about wins and losses. I'm over here grinding the tape.
Yes. Very excited. Very excited for rookie season. I'm working on profiles. I got a lot written up. We got a lot to say about these guys. I got some of my guys already. I'm excited.
It'll be fun. Can't wait to hop into it.
Yep. On that, we're going to end it. We will see you guys in the next one for the Fantasy Awards. Maybe we'll dress up for it. We won't, but maybe we will. And ready for Dynasty season. We'll see you guys next time.